That's a great problem, isn't it? To me, I'm going to get what little money I will make. I want to get some land near Taos, New Mexico, where D.H. Lawrence is buried, and I want to live on that land and write my movies there and then go back and make my movies in the city. But I'm from Dodge City, Kansas originally, and I miss the elements. I miss the country.
Yes.
And also I've become a very gregarious person. I don't spend much time alone at all. I'm constantly seeking people and looking for people because I'm very curious. But I'd like to see if I could sit in a field again and walk out in the morning and look at the bugs under the leaf and know that they're going to disappear when the sun gets to a certain point, and look at the sunset without having to take a girl or take anyone and explain to them how beautiful and romantic the sunset is. But can I enjoy it again? Can I enjoy the marvels of looking at all the stars and the galaxies? And can I enjoy a lightning storm or a rainstorm as I could when I was a child and be alone? Or will I have to run back to the city?
It must be difficult in Hollywood, certainly, to achieve this.
Well, first of all, it's difficult to breathe in Hollywood. I mean, the smog is so bad that it's...
Yes. When people, especially older people, when they've seen the film, what has been their reaction? Have they been puzzled or mystified or what?
Well, someone saw the movie last night. I can't remember. I met so many people last night, but one of your people here, a reporter, who claimed that he was the great middle class, and that for the first time he'd always been against grass, marijuana, and for the first time, not that he was going to go use it, but for the first time he was sympathetic.
I've heard that at one period in your movie career you were blacklisted.
Yeah, I was difficult to work with. I mean, they thought that I was difficult because I refused to take direction. I took direction when I respected the man. If I didn't respect the man, and most of the time I didn't take direction. I insisted upon blocking myself and playing the role the way I wanted to play the role and not the way they wanted to play the role, because I couldn't figure why they had to have a preconceived idea when I'd been trained in method acting that the only way to approach things is for the first time and not to have preconceived ideas, and for a man to give me line readings to tell me when to pick up a glass or when to take a drag off the cigarette was absurd in my method.
So when they slammed the door on you, what happened?
Well, I didn't work for 8 years in a major company.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, I could do independent television outside as long as it wasn't in a major company, and I did independent pictures, and I took photographs, and I became a photographer for Vogue magazine, Harper's Bazaar, and I assembled objects and showed in art galleries, and I sculpted in plastics, first time since the 30s, and I made foam rubber sculpture, and I did those things, and wrote, and got it together.
Yes, I notice in your room at the moment you're reading Dylan Thomas, and I think in the film there's a reference to D.H. Lawrence. Do you feel that you have got a sort of literary heritage to fulfill somehow?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you very quickly that when I was a young man, I was moved at a certain age when I was just learning how to read and just learning math. I was moved to a school that was maybe 6 months to a year advanced of where I was at. And I suddenly found myself put in a corner with alphabet blocks and some lima beans to learn how to add with, and I looked at these blocks and the fun that comes from kids of making fun of you as the dunce in the corner, and I suddenly said, wait a second, I'm not going to do this. I don't have to learn how to read, and I don't have to learn how to do mathematics. I have eyes, and I can see, and I have ears, and I can hear, and I can go out and experience things. Now, that was a rationalization to save myself at that moment in my agony. But in the same way, I went through school refusing to read and saying that those are preconceived ideas and other people's ideas, and they may be great, but I'm going to have my own ideas before I read. So I've really only read about 7 or 8 books in my life, total through cover to cover. I have skimmed books, I have looked, because it's a very difficult thing for me to read. It's hard for me to read. I can read now, yes, but it's slow and it's a tedious process. And also I'm much more given to using my senses and to experiencing and then having my own experiences. And then, yes, I am involved in Shakespeare and in D.H. Lawrence and Dylan Thomas and anyone who I consider in Thomas Wolfe, Faulkner, that I identify with, more with maybe the man or what the man tried to say as a body of life work rather than actually reading their life work.
I wonder, would you be cross if somebody called you an intellectual hippie?
Yeah, I suppose so. I assume that, like, it's possible to be anything and be an intellectual. But I don't consider myself an intellectual. I consider myself sensitive, or whatever that means.
Yes.
But I mean, I consider myself someone whose senses are open.
Yes, I think...
And I also think of myself not as a revolutionary, but as an evolutionary. And
yes.
Sometimes revolution is necessary to evolve, but as a last resort.
Right, I think this is the surprise in the film, that one has now become rather conditioned to, certainly to films about drugs and LSD and so forth, and certainly motorbike movies, where one sees, generally speaking, brutalized people. I think the big surprise in the film is that the two guys on the screen for most of the time are remarkably sensitive and react very, very sensitively to each other and to the things that happen around them.
Well, I'm so tired of, like, seeing the bad guy always snarling.
Yes.
I mean, to me, it was always much more dramatic when a man comes in smiling and says, "How are you?" and pulls out a gun and shoots you, and then walks out. I mean, like, that's frightening to me. Not the man who comes in snarling and says, "I'm going to kill you." Not that, but the man who isn't snarling who kills you. Well, in Hollywood films, it's so stereotyped. Everything's so black and white.
One of the characters in the film says at one point, very strikingly, "What on earth has gone wrong with this country?" or something like this. How do you think this is going to be taken in the States, in perhaps the southern states or the more repressed areas?
I don't know. I wonder how it's going to be taken when, like, I feel that we're going into a period of time now where it's like the McCarthy hearings. I mean, all the SDS leaders are being arrested, and the Black Panthers are being arrested, and the hippie leaders are being arrested, and there's very little information about it in the newspaper. I mean, like, I don't understand how, like, 1,100 people can be shot in Mexico City at the Olympics, shut off in a school and isolated and shot, and we get in the United States that 40 people were killed in the riots in Mexico City. And I don't understand how not only our nation would not stand up and say, "I'm walking out of this Olympics," or the communist nations, why didn't they stand up and said, "I'm walking out of this"? I don't understand why everybody just went along and played ball and ran and swam, and I don't understand. I think there are times when you must say, "Wait a second, I can't accept this." Also, I mentioned in the film that there are things that our leaders don't tell us. I use it in a Venusian vernacular about Venusians, but that they don't have leaders, and that the government knows all about the Venusians coming here, but they withheld the information from us. Well, I mean, it's just that, there's so many people, you read that 6 Marines were killed and 900 Viet Cong died. Well, that isn't true. I mean, that, we're just not getting the information. One thing about America, we may have been wrong about things, we may have been right about others, but we always had the information. The newspapers always played the information. The government always released the information. During the Second World War, sometimes it was withheld, but we always got the information eventually. Now there are things being withheld and done very quietly, that nobody's getting the right information.
What worries me listening to you speak is that you obviously have a hell of a lot to say, and you say it very powerfully when you do it in the form of a movie. Now, if you're not going to be able to continue making endless motorbike films, or endless drug or hippie, I don't want to use the word hippie, it's wrong, it's not a hippie film, but rebel film anyway, how on earth are you going to get all this out of your system and onto celluloid? What new means are you going to employ to say it all?
Well, I'm going to now make the movie that I wanted to make as my first movie, which is called The Last Movie. And takes place in Mexico. And it's about a movie company and what happens when they build sets on existing adobe houses where real people live and where they act out violence in the streets. John Wayne, bang, bang kind of violence, and where these people's realities, they still wear guns, they still ride horses, they still carry machetes. And when it starts with the last scene of the movie being shot and the company leaves, and these people are left with the streets, where one man becomes the director, and he makes the people build a stick camera, and he makes them act out the violence that he saw the movie company acting out in this facade, and the priest finally moves the things out of the real church into the movie set church to show the people that the same morals exist in the facade as exist in reality.
Is this the freedom to be able to say what you want to say, the way you want to say it?
Well, freedom in movies, movies are based, usually a person buys a novel, Then they get a man who didn't write the novel to write the screenplay. Then they get a man who didn't write the screenplay or the novel to direct it. Then they get a man to edit it who didn't direct it or write the screenplay or write the novel. Then they get a man who wrote the music who didn't have any... In other words, it's all disjointed, like too many cooks spoil the soup, right? I only want to do original things of mine. I don't want to adapt novels. I want to do original work, and I want to follow it all the way through the editing, so it's mine and not taken away from me and aborted. So that, to me, is like, you know, what I want. That's my freedom, just by controlling that entity.